Hi, it's Jefferson. Welcome to Tubelandia. Today we're going to talk about some of the record finds I found on my trip to New York about a month ago. Stay tuned. Recently, back in late May, early June, I went to New York and visited my daughter, who was graduating from orthodontic school. We also had an early birthday celebration for myself, and I took the opportunity to go shopping at several stores in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and also upstate in Ponoma, which I'll save for last. Anyway, on to what I found. But before we do, please like and subscribe to my channel. I talk about music, do shootouts, do little stuff with tape, and then whatever pops to my brain. So thanks. First store I'm going to talk about is Academy Records in Manhattan on 12th Street. Record shopping continues at Academy Records, the one down a little bit southern Manhattan. Let's see what we got in here. Picked up Sun Ra promo, Jazz and Silhouette. This is a later Impulse reissue, but it is a promo. Another promo, Dwight Yoakam, Guitars, Cadillacs, Hillbilly Music. Death Wish 2, if for no other reason than I found Death Wish 1 in a previous store. And finally, last but not least, Eric Burton and War. Eric Burton Declares War. Claims to be a UK pressing, actually turned out to be a German, which was fine, sounds great. And that was it for Academy Records on 12th Street. So if you're in New York and you're shopping for records and you're a jazz lover, it's a no-brainer, but you have to go to the Jazz Record Center. Out and about on a lovely New York morning, going into the Jazz Record Center with Fred Cohen, the legendary place for jazz since way back in the day. Can't wait. Fred Cohen, the proprietor, has run that store since 1983, and Fred wrote the definitive book on identifying different types of Blue Note pressings. So if you don't have this and you like Blue Note, you should probably get a copy. It's worth it. It saved me many times from not buying a repress that was trying to be passed off as an original, knowing what to look for, knowing that a lot of times you can't go by the jacket, you have to look at the dead wax. So anyway, this book is a valuable resource for anyone that's collecting Blue Note jazz. And Fred is just a nice guy, and he's a great curator. I always find stuff when I go into a store. This time particularly, I've been on a recent Sun Ra kick, and I know I can't really afford most of that stuff, but I wanted to see what he had, and he took me in the back room. He wouldn't let me take pictures of it, but I got to see some incredible Sun Ra albums that he sells on eBay, and they go for really well. They go really high. But Sun Ra is iconic, and I could spend a whole 2 or 3 videos just talking about him and how cool he is. But what I did pick up is my other obsessive jazz artist that I love and not a whole lot of people do, Booker Irving. So Booker, if you don't know, is a Texas tenor. He played with Charles Mingus in some of his early bands, and he did a lot of his own albums. He died very young in 1971. So he's one of those artists that kind of came and went before the internet. So unless you are a big Mingus fan, you don't necessarily know who he is, but I highly recommend checking him out because he's got this full, post-bop, hard bop sound, and he really plays well. So in terms of what I picked up are 2 Japanese pressings by Booker, one by The Candid, That's It. It's a later reissue. It's really good. And then another one, which is impossible to find. I have an original, this is a cooking. I have an original of this I bought 15 years ago, and it's got a nasty gouge down one side. it plays through, but with a constant ticking. It's essentially, you have to play it to rip it and then de-click it to enjoy it. But it's original. I love it. It's a great album. And then, so finding this, which is just to have a playable copy of Cooking, was worth it for me. And so it's always nice to see Fred. I picked up a Sun Ra t-shirt, which is the only Sun Ra in the store I could afford. And overall, it was a really good time. While we're on the subject of the Academy stores, the last one I went to was the one on 18th Street. Next stop is Academy Records on 18th Street. We'll see what we got here. Which I'd heard from a few people that, you know, it's okay. It has a lot more CDs than anything else. And I found the selection was pretty limited in terms of like seeing a lot of grails or whatever. But my friend Arnaldo Fidelio's Frequency was going to be able to meet me briefly for a couple of stores. And so that's one of the ones we went to. So I went there and I was, you know, poking around looking for stuff while he was getting there. And I actually found, you know, a couple things that were interesting, nothing earth-shattering, but I did find this David Byrne, Blues Tropical, which is an album I've had on CD forever. It's a nice compilation that David Byrne put together, and it's pretty stoked to find it. Also found one of my favorite bands, The Seldom Seen, Act 3. This is their third album. Like I've said before, if you like Americana, you know, old-time music, bluegrass, however you want to characterize that, these guys cannot be missed. The harmonies are off the roof. John Duffy has got one of the best voices in bluegrass I've ever heard. Can't recommend it enough. The other thing I found was this nice George Jones on Musicor with the psychedelic font. Woo! And it's Musicor, so it's the Pappy Daily influence. And if you've listened to Tyler Mahan Coe's Cocaine and Rhinestones podcast, whole season 2 is about George Jones, and so and the influence Pappy had on his early career. So I was intrigued to pick this up, and it was interesting. And you know, at some point, Arnaldo showed up, and you know, I was complaining that, you know, I hadn't really found too much. And we chatted, and we were both poking around the store, and then I found a few more things. I found this Billy Jack soundtrack, which is like a kind of movie I watched when I was a kid. It's so bad. But the song 110 Soldier is one of the few songs I learned to play on the guitar. So for $6, I couldn't really pass it up. Another good album, also for $6, was this Richard Thompson, Daring Adventures, which is, you know, really good mid-career Richard Thompson. If you like Richard Thompson, you can't really go wrong with anything he's ever done. But what's fun is that, I don't know if you can see that, I paid $6 for it, and then back in the day, it went for $5.99. So 1 penny profit over 30 years, but it's okay. We still love you, Richard. And then when Arnaldo got there, he poked around, and they have a box of free records outside, and he's like, "Hey Jefferson, did you see this?" And it's like, no, I didn't. I totally walked past it. But it's James Taylor, Sweet Baby James. But I think this has got Fire and Rain, yeah. So the song Fire and Rain was written at Broughton Mental Hospital, which is where he was at for some drug addiction and some other mental issues he was going through at the time. Fun fact, that mental hospital is only, 20 minutes from where I grew up in North Carolina. But yeah, Arnaldo found this. I was like, this is crazy. So I went and bought it, got it home, cleaned it up, and it sounds great. And they were literally giving this away. Original greeny label, James Taylor, Sweet Baby James. So seek this out. It's got some of his greatest hits, and if you like them, you can't really go wrong. Okay, then finally, they didn't have a whole lot on the Holy Moly wall, but what I did see was this Duke Pearson Prairie Dog. So it's early mid-60s mono Duke Pearson, who's a great pianist. I love him. Turned out to be a white label promo, which was kind of cool. I don't think I've ever seen an early Atlantic white label promo, so it's nice looking. And then, of all things, behind this album on the Holy Moly wall, right, they had this one, Mr. Wonderful. So it's, I think it's the first or second Peter Green era Fleetwood Mac album, but it's original UK stereo. Sounds great, great condition. So why was it hiding behind Duke Pearson? I don't know, but I was glad I bought Duke Pearson because I wouldn't have saw this one. So anyway, overall, the Academy Records on 18th Street, you know, it's not overwhelming with, you know, really great stuff, but if you spend some time there and you dig around, you might get lucky and find a few things like I did. And pro tip, look through that free shit because you never know what you're going to find, like that James Taylor. And thanks again, Arnaldo, for pointing that out. Okay, that's it for Academy on 18th Street. Another store I was able to visit with Arnaldo was Stranded Records. Now, New York Record Store crawl continues at Stranded Records in Manhattan. We'll see what we find here with my friend Arnaldo. All right, we'll see what we find. Of course, we have one in San Francisco. We have one in Oakland. They're a little boutiquey. They can be a little overpriced, but it's really nice that they do a lot of reissues of krautrock and other obscure prog and psych that you otherwise, you know, you're never going to afford original and you may not see it anywhere else. So, you know, it's worth popping in. I'd been there once before, last time I was in New York, and found a couple items. So went in there, checked it out, and one of the things I found was this Cluster Live that's been on my want list for a while. So if you know anything about Cluster, it's like amazing krautrock. I'll butcher their names, but Rodelius and Mobius, and a lot of times they worked with Eno. Sometimes they worked with Michael Roeder from New, and that was called Harmonia. But these guys are kind of like the backbone of a lot of different krautrock ensembles, and highly recommended. The other thing I found on the krautrock genre was this Grobeschnitt Jumbo, early German pressing. I was happy to find this. And then last but not least, I found this Zappa Mothers of Invention. It was only, I think, $15. Yep. But it had the rare poster that you never see. It's usually thrown away. So I was happy to get that. And otherwise, Stranded has a nice little store. It was a hot day. It was air conditioned, so it was nice to go in there and cool off for a little bit. I actually stood in front of the air conditioner for a few minutes, but regardless, yeah, good store. While still in Manhattan, one of the stores I went to was Ergo Records, which I believe is a fairly new store. Next up on my New York record tour is Ergo Records on 2nd Street. We'll see what we find here. Looking forward to it. They didn't have a whole lot, and there was a lot of, like, you know, local stuff, local artists that I probably should be familiar with, but I wasn't. But then I poked around a little bit, and I've actually found a few nice items, and ended up picking up this original 1959 Mingus Autumn 6i mono. This sounds fabulous. I haven't compared it to the Mo-Fi one-step yet, but I suspect this is going to be up there. I've only listened to this, and yeah, I was blown away at this album. What is that, 60 years old, 70 years old? It should still sound this good. Amazing. The other thing I picked up was this original US pressing, The Zombies, Odyssey and Oracle. Sounds really, really good. Original date, green label. So this was a nice pickup at Ergo. The guys there were, you know, interesting, typical record store guys. I'd been warned that they were kind of crusty or whatever, but they ended up being fine. They gave me a nice deal on these and couldn't be happier. So while I was visiting New York, I was, of course, checking all the stores. I wanted to check their Instagrams. And Academy Records had several things that have been on my want list for a while, but it was not until I went to the second Academy store, that I realized, hey, they have a warehouse for their Discog stuff, and none of it's actually in their stores. So I ended up making a separate order that was waiting for me when I got home, but I was super stoked to get the following. First, original minty New York dolls when in Rome, right? Also, this nice Alt Country Uncle Tupelo. It's a repress, but sounds great. And then, last but not least, thing that was really killer, it was really killer to find, was a sealed Shamande first album. This is a U.S. pressing. I opened it, cleaned it, minty, minty, minty. Sounds amazing. It does have this cutout, but I've been looking for an upgrade for this for a long time. I mean, you'll see them occasionally in the wild, and they're $100 or, you know, G plus, G, maybe 200 for VG plus. So to get this one for a reasonable price, I couldn't get my money out fast enough. So definitely check out the Academy Records Discogs while you're in New York as well. One of my favorite record stores to visit when I'm in New York is not actually in New York. It's actually Tunes Hoboken in Jersey. I've been going in there for a couple of years now. I always find stuff that's very interesting, or I watch their Instagram, and sometimes they'll send it to me remotely if I catch it in time. But some of the things I've picked up there in the past, for example, are original Blue Notes, Freddie Roach, Townes Van Zandt on the Poppy label, 4 or 5 records at one go. And then usually some UK stuff, Clash or whatever. I've picked up a lot of promos for Little Feat, Robin Trower, different things like that. So, you know, Chip's a great guy, and he's always, you know, bringing in good heat. So even though I wasn't able to get in there this trip, my friend Jay, who lives in Hoboken, was able to go snag some things for me once he saw them on the wall, one of which was this original Iggy Pop 1977 UK with insert. Sorry, it's a US, but it does have the insert. The UK thing I did get was this original UK Sandinista with some of the Tim Tom in the dead wax. So this sounds great, nice value. So Tunes Hoboken, once again, you guys are taking care of me. Thank you so much.